If you're going to visit Bryce Canyon National Park and are wondering what the Bryce Canyon National Park Scenic Drive is like, then you're in the right place. In today's episode, we're going to look at all the stops on the Bryce Canyon Scenic Drive. Hi, I'm James Ian, and I've written numerous guides and published several itineraries for Bryce Canyon National Park. Someone described me on YouTube recently in a comment as giving Bond villain vibes. I'm not sure why. I don't have metal teeth. I don't have a scary boulder hat. I'm just trying to help people have great national park trips. But anyway, I hope that I can help you enjoy the drive today through Bryce Canyon. It's because driving through Bryce Canyon National Park is really one of the highlights of a visit there. And you should definitely go there, and you should definitely do the drive. And if you're planning to do that, you're probably wondering what it's like and what you'll see there. Well, in today's episode, I'll show you all the stops and share my tips so you can get the most out of your time there. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe right now. If you're watching or listening somewhere else, follow my podcast to get the episodes as they come out. The Bryce Scenic Drive goes for 18 miles from the park entrance along the rim of the canyon to Rainbow Point, where it dead ends. The first 3 miles are around Bryce Amphitheater, and the remaining 15 miles are called the Southern Scenic Drives. Be sure to stay to the end, where I'll be sharing my top tip for the drive. You'll want to make sure that you don't miss out on that. Let's get into it.
Welcome to National Parks Collecting with James Ian, the national park expert. He's here to help you have the best national parks trips ever. Get tips, discover hidden gems, and learn all you need to know. This is your path to collecting national parks experiences, memories, and maybe even a stamp or two.
So what are the highlights of the Scenic Drive in Bryce Canyon National Park? There are 9 viewpoints along the southern part of the route and an additional 3 on a spur road along the southern edge of the Bryce Amphitheater. The first stop on the Scenic Drive is Rainbow Point. This is at the far end of the Scenic Drive, and there are 2 viewpoints here and a short hike that you can do. There are also restrooms available. This is the highest part of the park. It's at 9,100 feet elevation. This is 1,100 feet higher than the Bryce Amphitheater section of the park. Looking north, you can clearly see the pink cliffs that the hoodoos form from. These pink cliffs are one of the steps in the grand staircase. That's kind of cool to think about. There is a hike that you can do here, which is the Bristlecone Loop Trail. You'll see a trailhead near Rainbow Point, and this is an easy, mostly flat 0.8 mile loop through spruce, fir forest, and pine forest. And you'll pass bristlecone pines that are up to 1,800 years old, which is kind of cool. And you'll often see birds and chipmunks and squirrels and maybe even some pronghorned antelope here. The other viewpoint at the same parking area right at the end of the road is Yovimpa Point. This faces south, and it's a short walk from Rainbow Point. It's a great place to get a perspective of the grand staircase. The different steps in the grand staircase are named for the dominant color of rock. The top step is the pink cliffs that you're standing on. Directly below are the gray cliffs. The white cliffs are below that. You can see Molly's Nipple in the distance if you look carefully. And if you look even further near the horizon, you can see some red rock beneath the white cliffs. These are the Vermilion Cliffs, which has the Vermilion Cliffs National Monument. And below them, out of sight, are the Chocolate Cliffs. It's kind of cool, right? This enormous staircase. The tree-colored hills on the horizon are the Kaibab Plateau, which is also known as the North Rim of the Grand Canyon. As you head away from Rainbow Point, the first stop on the Bryce Canyon National Park Scenic Drive is Birch Canyon. And this has great views of orange, pink, white hoodoos and cliffs. The next stop is Ponderosa Point. Ponderosa Point is named after the huge Ponderosa pines on the canyon floor below. Some of them are 5 feet in diameter and more than 100 feet tall. Very impressive. From here, you can see canyons through gray cliffs and white cliffs. You may notice that the gray canyons are wider and less deep. This is because the white cliffs experience more flash floods. The next stop on the Scenic Drive is Agua Canyon. There are 2 prominent hoodoos here. The taller one on the left is called the Hunter, and the smaller one on the right is called the Rabbit or the Backpacker. You may struggle to see why. Many of the hoodoos were given names before they eroded into unrecognizability. Even so, I think some of them are kind of imaginatively named. But anyway, in the distance, you can see Navajo Mountain. You may also, if you're lucky, keep an eye out for a California condor. These enormous birds disappeared from the area many years ago, but have recently been reintroduced. The next stop is perhaps the most famous stop on the Scenic Drive, and this is Natural Bridge. The highlight here is the eponymous red-colored Natural Arch. The Natural Bridge here is a really good example of how hoodoos start. The softer stone in the middle has eroded, forming the arch, and then eventually the top of the arch will collapse and the two sides will become hoodoo. We're halfway along the drive already. Before we look at more viewpoints along the route, if you're watching this on my @National Parks Collecting YouTube channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe below. It really does help. Next up is Farview Point, and there are more great views of the Grand Staircase from here. From north to south, you can see Aquarius Plateau, which are the pink cliffs, the Kaiparowitz Plateau, the grey cliffs, Molly's Nipple, which are in the white cliffs, and even glimpses of the Kaiba Plateau or the north rim of the Grand Canyon. You can see up to 160 miles on a clear day. Also keep an eye out for osprey here. A pair of them nest at Tropic Reservoir and can often be seen flying here. There are also pit toilets available here. Before you hop back in your vehicle, the next viewpoint is Piracy Point. And this is actually a very short 0.15 mile trail that you hike from the Farview parking lot. It's flat, but it is unpaved. And it's at the far end of the parking lot if you're heading in the direction that you're driving away from Rainbow Point to Bryce Amphitheater. From this point, you can start to see the Rainbow Point Amphitheater. Back in your vehicle, hop back another short drive further along, you'll come to the next viewpoint, which is Swamp Canyon. This is a relatively small canyon. It's bound on both sides by fins and hoodoos. The canyon gets its name because of the wetland created by two tiny streams and a spring. There's water year-round, so the grasses, the irises, willows grow there, which makes it really green and lush and beautiful. This is the end of the Southern Rim Road Scenic Drive. Next up is the Bryce Amphitheater section of the 18-mile Scenic Drive. So from here, you'll take a short spur road to the right that goes along the southern edge of Bryce Amphitheater to 3 more amazing viewpoints. First up is Paria View. Now, most of the viewpoints around Bryce Amphitheater face east, but Paria Point faces west. This means that you don't have views of the main amphitheater, but it does make it an especially great place to see the sunset. There's a very prominent castle-like hoodoo here that is especially photogenic in the golden hour before sunset. Keep an eye out here for peregrine falcons. In the late afternoon, you may also see mule deer, elk, and even pronghorned antelope in the nearby meadows. Another viewpoint here is Bryce Point. This has one of the best views of Bryce Amphitheater, which is the largest collection of hoodoos in the park, in the world, actually. It's also on the shuttle route, so it doesn't need to be included on the Scenic Drive if you prefer to visit another time of the day. When you're there, looking north, you can see the full length of the amphitheater. You'll see the wall of windows near Inspiration Point and the flat top of Boat Mesa in the distance. Look east, and on a clear day, you can see the town of Tropic in the Paria Valley nearly 3,000 feet below. And the last viewpoint on the Scenic Drive is Inspiration Point. The views of Bryce Amphitheater from here are also amazing, just absolutely stunning. When you're there, there are actually 3 viewpoints over 3 different levels, and the views at the top level are the best. That's all the stops on the Scenic Drive, but we're not done yet. I have some tips and some important information to share. Stay to the end to hear my top tip for the drive. But first, you may be wondering, how long does it take to drive through Bryce Canyon? From the park entrance to Rainbow Point takes just a half an hour with a clear run. So you can do that, drive right to the end, but then in total you should allow about 3 hours for the Scenic Drive. This gives you time to stop at each of the overlooks and enjoy the views, and you won't feel rushed. Another question I often get asked is, can you drive an RV through Bryce Canyon National Park and along the Scenic Drive? Yes, you can actually. There are no vehicle restrictions on the Scenic Drive. It's open to RVs. However, there are some parking restrictions for longer vehicles. Vehicles longer than 20 feet can't park at the Visitor Center 1 hour parking lot, at Sunrise Point, at Bryce Lodge, at Sunset Point, at Inspiration Point, or Bryce Point during shuttle hours. They're also prohibited from parking at Paria View at all times because the parking lot is too small there. So you'll be able to do the southern section of the Scenic Drive, and then for the Bryce Amphitheater viewpoints, take the shuttle. Another common question I get is if the road is open all year. Again, the answer is yes, it is open all year, but the 15-mile southern Scenic Drive section may be temporarily closed in the winter due to wintry conditions. So always check the National Park Current Conditions webpage before setting out, and there's a link in the show notes below. The most common question people ask me actually is, what's the best way to fit the drive into my trip? You may be gathering by now, if you hadn't already, that there's a lot that goes into planning a trip to Bryce Canyon National Park. Although the park isn't that big, it is popular, and there are several different sections, and parking slots are limited. There is a free shuttle, but this doesn't go along the Scenic Drive at all, so you do need your own vehicle for that. And it can be really difficult to know the best order to do everything in and the best time to do them. This is exactly why I created super detailed itineraries for Bryce Canyon. There's a 1-day and a 2-day option, and they both include the Scenic Drives. You can find a link to the Bryce Canyon itineraries page at the top of the description box below, but we can take a walk through them briefly right now. The itineraries start with a park overview, and then they have a detailed schedule for each day, and then all sorts of details with hiking descriptions and maps, driving descriptions and maps, details of the Scenic Drive, of course, alternate activities in the same part of the park if you're traveling with people who want to do different things, tips, timings, and more. With one of these itineraries, you'll know exactly what to do and when and how to connect them all in a way that makes the most sense so that you're in the right place at the right time. Without this itinerary, people often find themselves struggling how to coordinate their time to be in the right place at the right time, to see and do all that they want in the time that they have available. The itineraries will help take away the overwhelm and give you all the information that you need in one spot so that you don't need to worry about missing out on a highlight of the park or stress about how to put everything together that you want to do into a schedule that makes the most sense. Just follow a link in the show notes below. Now, as promised, what's my top tip for the Scenic Drive? You'll notice that I described the drive starting at the far end first. This is my top tip. This is because all of the viewpoints will then be on the right side of the road, and you can safely pull in and out without needing to cross the road for traffic. If you want help planning your trip, check the links in the description box below. There's a bunch of planning and booking resources that you can use to plan and book your trips, and keep watching my videos to get even more help so that you can have the best national parks vacation ever. And if you want to get notified about next episodes, subscribe and click below.